So I think what I'll do is I'll give say a few introductory things while people still dribble in. This is the second of three workshops. If you ever want to get back to the outline for the first one, we've got a link here. This second one will go into depth on how to use Spyral to document and share your results. And it assumes that you've got a GitHub account so you can save your notebooks. And you should, at the end of this one, be able to create a notebook based on analysis that you've done in Voyant. So the third session, one of the things we're hoping to do is to have people who have created their own notebooks maybe share them and talk about what they're doing, and then we can talk about the features that they might want to try and show them things in a more impromptu fashion, depending on what your interests are. So you'll remember in the last one, we saw how to edit a notebook, but we didn't see how to save it properly. We saw how to save it to HTML, and I'll give a quick little review of what we're doing. Um, as I said, last time, this is a more advanced, this set of three is a more advanced workshop because you're really learning how to build a notebook programming, how to use a notebook programming environment at a basic level that allows you to document your research using Voyant. Um, let's see what else. We've created an online hands-on, not online, sorry. We've created a Microsoft Word file, which is a hands-on training, which you can go through, and it covers the same material that we're covering in this workshop. It does it a little bit differently, but it has, it has pictures and instructions and so on like that. So it should be something if you want to recapitulate, if you didn't hear anything, if you didn't understand some particular point, you can go in and check it out there. For today, though, you can just use this outline that I am covering. I mentioned at times if we have lots of people, the Voyant server might get slow, but I don't think we have too many. I think it'll be okay. And I should thank and acknowledge that Augustine Fadinola is online. He's helping out with this. He helped write the materials and prepare this workshop, and he will be putting things in the chat and interrupting me if somebody's got an important question and stuff like that. We also have Andrew McDonald, who is the programmer of Voyant and Spyral. So you can get, if I say something wrong, he can correct me. And you can, if you have programming questions that I can't answer, he's here and can help out. I'd like to acknowledge right now and thank Bridging Divides, who have been supporting this, supporting the Voyant development and supporting these training sessions and so on like that. So at this point, I'm going to give a quick little review of what we did last week. To begin, I showed you how to use Voyant. I showed you the sort of entry screen. I showed you how you can upload a text if you want to. You can paste in a URL, you can type some text, and I am going to actually just sort of open Austen novels. So this is a corpus, a collection of Austen's novels that has already been indexed. So I know it. And here is the default screen. These are loosely concatenated. You click a word here. The trends tool here will synchronize. You click that and you get the keyword in context will synchronize. You click this and the full text reader will synchronize. Each one of these panels has different tools. So here's a tool that shows the different documents that are there. This is a tool that shows multi-word phrases and stuff like that. So we've got all these different tools. And one of the things I showed was how you can export if you see something interesting. So often the practice with Voyant and Spyral is you interact and you explore your corpus in Voyant, and then when you see something interesting, you click this button and it will export this. It'll create a blank Spyral notebook and it'll export the code needed to generate the particular tool panel that you were interested in. And it will actually generate it if you've entered some parameters in Voyant. It'll actually add the parameters and stuff like that. And this gives us two code cells. One code cell loads the text. In this case, it's a named corpus called Austin, and it assigns it to the my corpus object name. And then from there on in, for the rest of what we're doing, we can just use my corpus.tool, and we can call different tools. And one of the things we're going to learn today is how we can start adding different parameters and controlling these tools in more interesting ways. So let me just check my notes here. Um, let's see, review. Oh, and then I think I was showing how once you've done something, you can use the export button and you can export the file to HTML. This creates a web page which is not editable, but editable. It certainly isn't editable either. But this one, it looks a lot like your original Spyral notebook, but this is really just a static web page. It's got the code, it's got the tool. The tool is actually interactive, but you can't edit the cells, you can't change the text, you can't change the code or anything like that. You can, if you go back into Spyral, in Spyral, you can use this button to reopen that notebook, and then you get it back. It's living. You can edit it again. So some of the things that we want to learn now is one of the main things we want to do is to learn how to save to the Spyral server. So you're not having to save to HTML and then reopen and go back and forth, which is sort of annoying. Instead, if you have that GitHub account, I'm going to show you how you can save to the Spyral server. So to do that, so let's say I have this notebook. I'm just going to edit the text file a little bit. This is a new notebook that I want to save. I'm going to edit the metadata. Test notebook. I'm going to add a keyword. It's a tutorial. I'm not going to include it in the catalog. I'm not going to do anything else for the moment. I'm going to save that metadata. So now the title has changed. My name is there as an author. So now I want to save it to the server. And there's two ways I can do this. Normally, saving happens underneath this cloud, but because I haven't logged into GitHub, it's not going to actually let me do that. What it's going to do, I'm sorry, I have logged into GitHub. Let me just get out of here. I'm going to unlog in from GitHub just so I can show. I'm going to sign out. So I am out. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to log out. So let's pretend we're starting the day. I haven't logged in. I haven't done anything. Now, when I click here, it tells me I need to sign in with GitHub. And the same happens if I click on this little view your account button. Once I'm logged in, this will show me my account and all my saved notebooks. And this button here, the cloud button, will allow me to save or save as. And sometimes we use the word fork for save as because it allows you to take a notebook, you want to try a variant of it, you can save it under a different name and add various things to it. So I'm going to log in. I'm going to click this button here. It's going to say sign in with GitHub. It's going to take me well, in this case, it logged me in automatically because I was already logged into GitHub. I thought I had logged out. I'm going to try that again. Yeah, I'm still logged in. Let me sign out. Oh, there, I didn't press this button. So now I am thoroughly signed out. Let's see if I can get this to work again. I'm going to click this. I'm going to log out. One of the things it does, once you've logged into GitHub, it's going to keep you logged in, so you don't have to keep on logging in over and over again, and that's what I'm struggling with here. So now I try this again. It takes me to GitHub. This is the standard GitHub login. So I happen to have a password manager. That's why it's offering me. So I put my account name and my password. It has two-factor authentication, so it's going to send me an SMS. And I need to check this SMS. So I just got a new authentication number. This is never going to be the same. It's not going to be the same for you. Every time you log in, it's going to be a different authentication number. And now I'm logged in and I can go to the cloud and hit save. And of course, it's going to want an ID. So it's going to want a name. When you're giving it a name, you shouldn't put any spaces in the name. You shouldn't use any strange characters. You can use like an underscore and a hyphen, but otherwise you shouldn't use things like colons and so on like that. So I'm going to call it my test notebook. I'm using um, a sort of style of writing variable names or IDs called camel casing, where you leave the first letter of the first word lowercase, but every time you have a new word, you capitalize it. It makes it a little bit easier to read the phrase "my test notebook" when it's actually just one word. I'm going to hit save. If there was already a notebook saved under my account with that name, it would have barked at me. And now, if I look up here in the URL window, you'll see that I have, first of all, it says Geoffrey Rockwell at GH. GH is GitHub. So it knows my identity. And then it has the name of the notebook, my test notebook. So it's basically saying that my test notebook, saved under the account of Geoffrey Rockwell at GitHub, is now the notebook. I could share this URL with someone else and they could see it. Spyral is meant to be open. There's no passwords. There's no hiding notebooks once they're saved on the server. If I go to my view your account, I can see all the different notebooks. Obviously, I've written a whole mess of different notebooks. I can delete these notebooks. I can yeah, I can sort of scroll through and find them. I can reopen different notebooks and stuff like that. I'm not going to do that since the notebook is already opened. And this, by the way, is where you can, if you're using a shared computer or something like that, you can log out so that nobody can get at your collection of Spyral notebooks. Okay, so I've given you a little tour through saving. I'd like you to now try it. Go to the entry page of Spyral, do a quick little set of edits to, edit the metadata, edit the text cell, do a couple of edits, and then try logging in and saving this notebook in your account. So I'm going to let you go, and if you're having any trouble, just feel free to speak or to put something in the chat. And I'm happy to take questions. Jessica, I should mention that somebody tried to join under the name user, and I just removed them. Um,
No, I appreciate it. We've Augustine and I have both asked a few times for them to change their name to their first name, their username, sorry, to their first name, but yeah, they have access to the recording if they need to.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so does anybody need more time? If you don't, I'm going to go back and continue and start showing how to load corpora. Feel free to put something in the chat. Um, Augustine, you'll tell me if somebody says that they need a little bit more time or has a question.
Yeah, someone has a question saying, where is the saved Spyral notebook in GitHub again?
So it isn't actually stored. That's a great question. It's not actually stored in GitHub. We're simply using GitHub to authenticate you because we don't want to build our own authentication engine. Where we save it, it's saved on the same Voyant Spyral server where we save the corpora. And this is actually a server. It's run by the Digital Research Alliance of Canada. This is the what we used to call Compute Canada. It's a server on the network of servers that are run for researchers in across Canada. If any of you are faculty, you can, and you may not know this, but you can get your own account on a Drac server. They'll give everyone a sort of basic account just when you apply and stuff like that. And they've been very supportive. I should actually recognize and thank them. They've given us a very powerful server because Voyant is used quite heavily, quite widely, and they've actually given us two. We have a second beta server where we can experiment with and stuff like that. And this is it's actually one of the great things of research here in Canada that we have this free federally funded resource that we can all get access to. So that's where it's being served. The actual server, I'm not quite sure where it is physically. I think it's in Quebec, but Andrew could correct me on this. If you ever find that you've saved something, you can always delete if you save a notebook and you suddenly realize, oh, this is confidential information. You can always go into your account and you could select a notebook and you could delete it. But you have to be careful that deleting the notebook doesn't delete the Voyant corpus, which is underneath that. And for that, you have to email us and give us the corpus ID, and we will go in and delete it. So just be careful. If you would need to work with confidential information, you can install Voyant and Spyral on your own machine, whether it's your own server at your university, which is locked down in some fashion, or your personal computer. We have a Docker install, which works fairly well. You can contact us, and we can help you with it if you're having trouble with it. And then you can run it all, and everything is saved on your own machine, even your notebooks, the corpora, everything. So does that answer the question? I'm going to assume the answer is. Oh, Andrew says the server we're using is actually at the University of Victoria. Great. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend a fair amount of time showing you different ways you can load a corpus. And there's actually two parts of loading a corpus. The first one is loading a spreadsheet or a text or a collection of texts or a URL so that the data gets to our server and our server indexes it, at which point it is assigned a corpus ID. The second way of loading a corpus is when that corpus is already indexed and there's already a corpus ID, you can always load a corpus that is pre-indexed. And that goes, of course, much faster. And once you've indexed the data you're working with, you never have to index it again. From there on in, you can just load the corpus using the corpus ID and it'll work and it'll go very fast. So you don't need to continually go through the process of indexing it and creating one corpus ID after another, using up our disk space. So you understand that there are these two senses of loading a corpus. But what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how you can either load from a corpus ID or load some raw data. So to do that, I'm going to first, I'm going to go to this test notebook, and this is what this first line does. Here it is loading a corpus. In this case, It is loading a named corpus. So this corpus, we've given it the name Austin. We've given it that name so that people can quickly get going if they want to play. This has been pre-indexed, so it loads very quickly. It's got a name. Normally, what you'll have here is not a name, but a long sequence of letters and numbers. And you'll see that when we do something with it. So I'm going to now go down. I'm going to add another code cell. And this code cell now, so I'm going to load a different text, and this time I'm going to load something from my hard drive. This text, I need to configure it, and I'm going to hit the configure button, and it gives me a whole mess of choices. The default is just to type JavaScript, but we have a whole mess of other choices, and we'll be exploring some of them. I'm going to choose the first one that says corpus. I'm going to actually, I'm going to minimize that so that we don't have to look at that word cloud. Um, Maybe I'll actually just delete it. Okay, so here's where I have a series of choices. The first choice is I've got to decide what sort of thing I'm going to load. So I'm going to start with text. I could just type some text in here or paste some text in, but I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to try the news.google.com. I'm just going to check this. Okay, so here's what the news.google.com page looks like. I'm copying the URL. And I'm going back to my test notebook. I'm going to paste that in. And so what this is going to do is it's going to try to go off and get the text on that web page, come back, index it, and of course I've got to give it a data name. So I'm going to call it my corpus. So this is going to do both operations. Well, it's going to do three operations. It's going to get the text, it's going to index it, and then it's going to assign it to the name my corpus. I should say, by the way, that a lot of web pages will refuse to sort of let a robot, an automated system like this, actually get the text. And so sometimes you will get an error. For example, the University of Alberta page refuses. We have over here, we have options. These are the same options um, when you enter the plain Voyant page. You'll remember last time I was showing how you can bring in spreadsheets and stuff like that, and we'll talk about that later. Um, but for the moment, I'm just doing this. I hit the assign button. It goes off. It grinds away. And here you see it's actually assigned to corpus ID. So we've got the corpus ID. It has no title, subtitle. It tells me that there's only one document. It's not really a collection of documents, and it's got some other metadata. I can actually take this corpus ID here if I want to, and I can go to Voyant and I can paste it in, and now I can get the Voyant. So you see, if you look at the URL up here, if you've used Spyral to generate a corpus, you can always look at it in Voyant by just adding question mark corpus equals, and then you've got the corpus ID, and there you go. There you are. That'll open up the default page. So here you can see there's a lot of sort of metadata, but eventually if I scroll down, Alberta wildfires, how to protect yourself. So we see the sort of raw text of the news page. But I don't need to use that full corpus ID. I can add another code cell, and now, from now on in, I can use my corpus. And you'll remember we can call .tool, and I can pick, it gives me some in-context help here. So I can pick Cyrus, and if I run this, it should give me a word cloud of the front page of the Google News. So that's one way to bring information into your notebook. We've got a couple other ways, so I want to show some of these other ways. I'm going to show the variable one a little bit later. I'm going to show the corpus ID one right now. So if you have a corpus ID already, you can just give it the corpus ID. We happen to have a notebook that we created. Elian, who's online, and I created this. We actually worked with someone at TMU, Zarif Masood, who they scraped the Hansard from the Open Parliament website. They scraped the Hansard for the phrase artificial intelligence or AI and the word immigrant or refugee. So we were looking for any interventions in the parliament that had the combination of AI or artificial intelligence and immigration or refugee. And we then brought that down. Um, that came down as we put it in a spreadsheet, and in fact, we'll be playing with a spreadsheet later on. And then we started playing with it. And you can see actually here we're loading the spreadsheet. I'm not going to go into detail on this notebook, but I have given you the link to this notebook so you can see how that might work. Um, and um, Let me think. So this is one of the ones that we could use. I'm trying to find the let me go back to my notebook here. So here is a corpus ID that I can use. Ah, oh, the Apple interface keeps on wanting to give me spelling information and dictionary information. So I've grabbed a corpus ID for something that is already indexed. And now I can just paste it in here. And these corpus IDs can be useful to save if you've gone to a lot of work to upload something and so on like that. So now I'm just going to run this again, and it's going to replace the data name my corpus now will not point to the Google News page, but should point. Oh yes, well it is actually Google News since this is the example that I put together, but it's now I'm using the actual corpus ID. So that's the second way I've shown you. I've shown you how you can put in text. I've shown you how you can give a corpus ID. And the third way I want to show you is how you can upload a file. So in this case, I am going to upload, going to my desktop, bridging divides. You'll remember we had a text file. This was from the list of 2020 projects from the IRCC. These are all the projects from Alberta. It's just one large text file. I'm going to click open. Now I'm going to run this. I'm going to click assign. Then I run my Cyrus again. And now I see the word cloud for this different text file. So we've seen three different ways of doing this. It's probably occurred to you that you can actually always you can just write the raw code. In fact, if you wanted to write, you can type in a URL the same way we did it using this panel here. So you can always just put the raw code. We could uh, we could upload the file, give it a variable name, and then type the variable name in here. So there's different ways you could actually do it in code. But this panel here makes it easy to do this in different ways. So what I propose that you do now is you try this out. So you create a code cell and try using the technique of the URL to sort of load. Try uploading a file, and then also try to find a corpus ID. And you can use the corpus ID that we've got here if you want. In fact, this is the corpus ID for the Parliament interventions. So take it away. Um, If for those of you who want a more advanced look, we actually have a tutorial notebook called sorry, called Loading Data in Spyral. And this notebook goes in great detail through all the different sort of approaches to loading in Spyral. So you can always get back to and look at and see how see some different approaches. We have tens of approaches to loading data. So take it away and don't be shy, ask questions, and I'm happy to show stuff.
There is a question in the chat for you.
Okay. What determines whether an analysis step should be done in Voyant or in Spyral Notebook? And how do the two tools complement each other? Good question. So, Spyral is actually just a different interface to Voyant. If you will, we've built two different interfaces to the same corpora. So you can go back and forth between the two. The reason why Spyral is different is that when it comes time to actually keeping track of your research, it becomes useful to be able to write a notebook where you write, this is what we're looking at, these are the different things that we're doing. It allows you to save it allows you to save the precise queries that you had and allows you to annotate them. So you can say, I think I'm seeing this here, or maybe I should try the following. Um, the panels in Spyral are interactive, just the way just the way that they are in Voyant. The difference is in Voyant, we put all the panels together in one spot, so you can go bouncing back and forth. But of course, you can lose track of what you saw because you can search one thing and then another thing, and then you lose track of what you searched before. So that's one reason why it can be useful to start shifting to Spyral when you know that you want to share when you don't just want to share the interactive Voyant interface, but you actually want to share your thinking about that data, because here's where the text things. A last thing that you can do, and you're going to see this in this notebook here, is certain types of data like spreadsheets. Sometimes you want to bring them into Voyant with different settings. So you might want to, and what I'm going to show you is that you can bring this into Voyant grouped by the speaker's party if you want to compare liberals' discourse against conservatives. Or you can bring it in by year if you want to look at it diachronically. So in the same Spyral notebook, you can load the same corpus with different parameters, and then you can try different things depending on what you've got. And it's it gives you the ability to really document what you're doing. The last thing I'll say is that I sometimes use Spyral to actually create a custom interface, if you will. Instead of the default Voyant interface, I can set up in sequence the tools that I know I want for this particular thing, and then I can bounce back and forth between them because they are interactive, and I can change the settings. So that's sort of a long answer to the question. And there is really no priority for one to the other. They are two interfaces to the same underlying text engine, just with different affordances, if you will. What determines whether, when working with XML files in Voyant, how should I select group by column data? Okay, well, so that's a more advanced. Um, so this will all depend. So I'm answering this question about how you select things with in Voyant. I'm going to go. This is a much more advanced question, and it depends on how you structured your XML. So I'm actually going to. I think I have a tutorial notebook that shows using XML, doing things with XML. Okay, so here we have, so I apologize to the rest of you. This is going to be more advanced. You need to understand XML, which is a language for marking up data that is sequential. It's used a lot in the digital humanities for marking up novels, plays, manuscripts, and stuff like that. So here I have an XML file, which is Act One, Scene One of Romeo and Juliet. And you'll notice that each speech, we've got a tag that says speech, the name of the speaker, then we have the speech, and then it's speech off, and then we have the next speaker, and so on, so on, so on. So that allows me to load the XML data right here. I can identify using XPath, and I apologize, this XPath, you have to know XML, and XPath is its own sort of almost programming language, but it allows me to specify exactly how I should group the different XML edit elements and what titles to give them. So I'm grouping them by names of characters, and the content is going to be in the speeches. And what I get in the end, if you look here, is I get two documents. One is all the speeches by Gregory. So the opening of Romeo and Juliet has these two sort of minor characters chatting and setting the scene. And the other one is all the speeches by Samson. So it's extracting those from the XML and munging them. And this can be extremely powerful, but you need to know your XML and you need to know your XPath. And then you can do all sorts of cool stuff with it. So I apologize to everybody else, or I don't apologize, but that's sort of an advanced feature. And Huang, I'm happy to sit down with you and go over this if you're going to use XML as opposed to spreadsheets for what you're studying. Do we have other questions? How is everybody doing? Have you played around? Have you been able to load a corpus using a URL? Load it using uploading a file or using the corpus ID? Have these different ways worked for you? Well, Lead says he's getting to know XML more every day. XML is a rabbit hole, let me tell you. Um, XML is foundational for the digital humanities because if you're doing a scholarly digital edition of a historic text, we have the Text Encoding Initiative has developed a whole set of guidelines on how to encode the XML, how to keep track of variants, manuscripts, front pieces. I mean, it's a very rich set of guidelines for using XML, and you can get some extraordinarily complex files, which maybe three people in the world can understand. But then you can hide using CSS or using other technologies, you can hide that complexity and you can build an interface where people can see the plain English, they can see the variants, you can, and so on, so on, so on. You can pull stuff out of it. So object blob is the my corpus. I think that's when you run something. Andrew, help me out here. So what is the object blob?
So in the options for cell types, there's a somewhat confusingly, there's a corpus type, and then below that is file type. If you went to file type, that is what gives you the blob result, which you can assign to a variable name like the corpus, but it doesn't automatically create a corpus for you. Um, So if you want to create a corpus with the corpus ID, then you want to use the cell mode data corpus, not cell mode data file. I hope that makes some sense.
So what this is going to do, so if I upload the alberta.txt file, it's going to create the object blob. This is not yet indexed. Do I have to then do load corpus the text to index it?
Um, so this is a case where you can refer in the corpus cell. If you use the variable type of corpus creation, you could enter the text there, and then that would create it from that.
Okay.
The reason why there's just a like raw file upload is as an example, perhaps you have a custom list, a custom stop list, keywords list, categories list, and you can use this cell to upload that and then use that when you're working with your corpus to filter it, for
Okay.
example.
Okay. So good question. So there you are, the corpus type cell. That's the most powerful one for loading and indexing your corpus. I'm going to show a new way to use that using the variable. So I'm going to please tell me if you still need some time. If not, I'm going to show another aspect of how to use this. So down here, I'm going to configure I'm going to configure the code cell to be a text field or a cell where I can enter and edit text. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign that text a variable name, and then I'm going to load that text from the cell that I'm editing. I'm going to load that text in and create a corpus. So this allows me to actually see and control the text which is going to be loaded. And you actually saw that when I briefly showed that notebook doing XML. I can see the XML, I can load it, and then I can turn it into index and stuff like that. So I'm gonna go off to the U Alberta homepage, and I'm gonna find some. There should be something sort of about the U of A. Do we have a sort of history? Like all universities, we're the best in the world, and we specialize in excellence. Um, there's nothing about the history of it. Well, there you are. Visiting the UA. I'm just going to grab some text. I'm pasting it in. I can grab text from multiple places. So I can build, if you will, I can build my custom set of texts here. What else does U of A say about itself? Rankings. Let's see what rankings. University continues to be one of the top places, so on, so on, and so on. So here I have a bunch of text. and I can have quite a bit of text there. And I could actually have a series of URLs, each one on its own line, but that would be a more advanced feature. But I got this text. I'm going to assign it the variable the text, and you can see we can actually see the variable there. I'm gonna minimize that little output area, and now I can do load. Sorry, I can go into configure. I can choose corpus. And when I choose variable, it's going to give me a list of the various variables that are already there. And there's my text. So I choose the variable that's already there. I'm going to give it the data name. So this is going to be my text corpus. I hit assign. It's running away. It's now indexed it. Notice that there's now a corpus ID. I can use that corpus ID if I want to look at it in Voyant. But I can also add a new code cell, and using this name, my text corpus dot tool, and then I can choose I'm going to choose the context tool. I'm going to run it, and it gives me the context. In this case, for the word north. It picks a high frequency word and it gives me the context for the word north, but I could type in a different one like campus, and I can now see the keyword in context for campus and so on and so on. And this panel is interactive. The only difference between this panel here and in Voyant, the panel is loosely concatenated with other tools. Here it's a standalone. So take it away and try that yourself. Create a cell, a text cell, assign the text to a variable name, and then play around with the variable option to allow you to take that text that you can edit and load it. And you can see how this allows you to sort of proof your content to sort of check it, look at it. Maybe if you're, especially when you're loading web pages, they have lots of garbage, and you can sort of get rid of the garbage and keep just the web page. Or you could, put the text for multiple web pages, get it all in one place. So there's that. Take it away and try it out. Okay. Did that work for everyone, or do you have any questions? I'm going to now switch to um, talking about how to sort of build a notebook where you load your text and then you have multiple cells where you analyze it with different tools. So I'm actually going to start a new notebook, and you can actually just follow some of the things I'm going to do. I'm gonna say this is new test notebook. I'm going to this is a new notebook to study Alberta projects. What I'm going to do now is load the file. So this is something you should have just seen. So I'm going to go and get that alberta.txt file. You can grab anything for your own one. You can go in and grab a Microsoft Word file or something like that. Or if you have another text file, grab something of your own that interests you. If you have a paper of your own, or if you have some document that you're interested in studying, just don't grab anything which you wouldn't want up online. I'm going to give it a data name, my corpus. I'm going to assign that, and then I'm going to add a code cell, and the I'm going to do my corpus dot tool, and I'm going to open up the Cyrus. So my corpus dot tool. So what did I do wrong? Choose a file.
You're using the data creation, not corpus creation.
Oh, right. I just did what I wasn't supposed to do. There you go. Okay, back to here. File, upload, text, assign, and you'll see we have the corpus ID, and I'm going to test that it's worked, and we've got the Cyrus, we've got the word cloud. So what I'm going to do now is, and this is sort of the way I tend to work, I'm going to take this corpus ID. I'm going to go to Voyant, and I'm just going to add, I'm going to look at this corpus in Voyant. So I've just pasted in the corpus. Voyant actually has a very powerful, almost command language, if you will, built right into the URL. The question mark says I'm providing a parameter. All parameters come with the name of the parameter and then the value. So in this case, I say this is the corpus, and here's the value. It's the corpus ID. So this should give me the Voyant interface to the same Alberta text that I was playing with in my Spyral notebook. So I'm going to hit enter, and here I am. I have this blob of text. And now what I can do is I can start adding, I'm going to search for something, the word online. I can start adding tools. So I'm going to add, I can start adding code to my notebook by exporting Spyral notebooks from the Voyant interface and copying and pasting the code. So I'm going to hit export. I don't need I don't need this initial code cell because I've already loaded the corpus. But I can now copy this code cell, which copies the tool, and it's got everything I need in it. It's got the name of the query, the word that I was looking at. So I can copy that, and I'm now going to paste it into a new code cell in Spyral. And when I run that, I should now get the same trends display that I got before, but this time it's now using the particular query because right up here we have this parameter, and I'm going to talk some more about this called query. So what is the query? It's the word online. So you see what I've done? I've created my corpus. I tested it just by typing in a line of code, but I could have I didn't have to do that. And then what I'm doing is I've loaded the Voyant equivalent. So I now have two interfaces to the same corpus, and I can use this to find various things that I want to add. I could sit there and say I want the keyword in context. Get the new Spyral notebook, generate the code, copy the code, put it in a code cell in my original notebook. And by the way, this notebook here that I generated is I can discard now. I don't need it. It was just a sort of temporary one so I could grab the code and play around with it. So that's what I want you to try to do now. Load some data that you want. Grab the corpus ID. Remember to to configure your code cell to corpus, not to file. Grab the corpus ID so you can open it up in Voyant, and then try getting, let's say, two different tools from Voyant that you liked with interesting things and copying just the tool code, not the original load corpus code, copying that to your notebook, and then save that under your name because this is something that you can start to build on. So take it away. And as always, feel free to stop and ask questions and go from there. I noticed that a number of people have joined us late. I apologize. This session started at noon Eastern time, 10 o'clock Alberta time, but Jessica will be sending out an email with the session is being recorded, so you can always um, when Jessica sends out the email, you can always watch the recording and follow through the stuff that you missed. And we have all the materials are in a Google Drive that you can download and play with, including this alberta.txt text file. So how's everybody doing? Shall I move on? We're getting close to the end. You want another minute or so? Good question, Huang. So interpretation. So first of all, you put your finger on uh, these text analysis tools don't prove things about data. What they do is they show you the data from different perspectives, and you're the one who needs to interpret it. We actually have a set of tutorials. Um, we have a set of tutorials for Voyant, and there's a link. Um, there's a link at the top there. It says tutorials on Voyant. And if you select that, it takes you to a set of hands-on tutorials, the Microsoft Word style tutorials that we have here. In fact, what Augustine and I are doing is actually we are creating, as we teach this, we are creating tutorials for Spyral that will parallel this set that was created by myself and Ayushi. And we have some of the tutorials begin to take you through ideas about how you would study a text using Voyant and of course documenting it in Spyral. We don't talk about Spyral here. So this one here, the studying a text walked through two. Some of the other ones, for example, walk through five, exploring a text shows how you can use text mining tools to give you ideas that allow you to form hypotheses, which you can then follow through. But and then this walk through six, following a theme. So the approach that I sort of encourage through these tutorials is use different tools to try to form a hypothesis about some of the themes in the text. And then what you do is you follow the theme through using various tools. You search for words, you find words, and then you map them and you try to see if there is if the theme changes in some way, and you look at collocates and so on like that. So we actually cover this, even walk through seven salient words, how to think about which words are more important than others. So it's very word based. So I encourage you to look at those tutorials, and we can actually spend some time at the end. I can sort of give you a sort of walkthrough and but maybe next week we can also talk about that. I can prepare something that shows how I might go through something. Um, yeah. So good question. Let me just check how are we doing here. I will say, remember, I'm coming out of the humanities, so unlike in the humanities, interpretation is a dialogical, sort of iterative thing. You look at something, you sort of ask yourself, why is that this anomaly? Is there a theme here? And you work your way around, and that's why Voyant has this sort of interactive interface. There are situations where you have a very specific question, and a tool like Voyant may not be the appropriate one, where you just want to know what the high frequency words are, or you're trying to sort of get a summary of the text, and that's where you can use a large language model. They work very good at some of those types of things, but they hide the interpretation from you. In some sense, they give it to you. There it is. It's packaged. You don't know how they came up with this summary or how they decided what the major themes were. Okay, sorry. I'm going to go back here. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to start showing you how you can edit this code that is here. So if we take this line of code that I exported from Voyant, it's a little bit more. I could have, it's these two forward slashes, by the way, comment. So I'm commenting out the rest of this code. So, if I run this, I just run the trends tool and it automatically is in its default mode. It automatically grabs the top five high frequency content words and graphs those. But what this shows you by exporting it with a query, it shows you how you can actually enter your own query. So you could begin to edit this code. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get rid of this mode document parameter. It's not really doing anything. It's just telling Voyant that we're looking at one document. That would be more useful if I had a corpus of multiple documents and I want it to narrow in on only one document, and I could give it the index number of that document. But I'm not doing that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play around with this set of words. So instead of searching for the word online, I'm going to search for the word project. And now when I run this, it generates, it shows me a trend graph of the word project over that Alberta.txt file. It's not particularly interesting, but you can see how you can edit this parameter to include different words. I can include more than one word, so I could include online and project. Notice that you have to get the syntax right. Anytime you've got a text like a word, you have to surround it with quotation marks. Anytime you've got an array, the square bracket shows an array. An array is a list of things. They have to be separated by a comma. You get anything wrong, and I can't guarantee what results you get. You might get something, or it might give you an error code or something like that. So just to sort of go over some of the syntax of what we've got here, we've got the corpus object. We're calling the method tool. The method tool takes, if you will, two parameters. The first one is what is the name of the tool, and the second one is going to be a list of other parameters. And in this case, inside that list, we have one parameter, the query parameter, colon, and then we have an array of one or more words that we want to query. And so when we run this, it shows me the trends graph for both words. So this is a little bit how you can begin playing with these parameters. And don't be afraid, you can't break it. It can sometimes be complex to understand what's going on, but there is a way to get help. And that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to create a new cell, and I'm going to show you how you can get help, to put in the code directly that will get you a tool that maybe you haven't played with before. So instead of going off to Voyant, this is the way to do it. And this is, you can use the in-context help. When I click this, it opens this in-context. So I've got help right here, and I can wander around while still looking at my notebook. And in particular, the one most of this is going to be more complex. You need to be a programmer to understand, but tools documentation gives you a list of tools. So I'm going to go to phrases. And if you go to the top, it gives you some example code. So I'm going to just copy this code. I'm going to paste it in here, and now I'm going to edit it. So the first and most important thing is I don't want load Austin. I don't want the Austin corpus. I want my corpus. So I'm going to replace that. So I've got my corpus. And now what you'll notice here is that it's every tool has sort of two parameters here. It's got phrases, and then it's got a variable called config, and this is the code that allows you to set the configuration. So instead of just typing them, I could type it all out here, but it's a little bit cleaner and nicer to type it out, one configuration parameter per line. I can play with these, I can delete them, I can edit them to get them what I want. At the moment, they're all set to null, so this won't generate anything interesting. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get rid of the ones that don't make sense to me. So I'm going to get rid of all of them except for this max length and min length. Phrases is a tool. I'm going to go right here. We've got the tool right here. You can expand it maybe a little bit so you can see it. It's a tool that shows you phrases with repeating words. And one of the things that allows you to do is to look at the how many, so what is the length? How many words are there in this repeating phrase? So there's two of these repeating phrase and of 16 words, which is sort of unusual. And then there's a bunch with 7 words, and then some with 6 words. And you can actually control that down here. You could say, I just want to see phrases of 8 words or more. Or you could say, I only want to see phrases that are, 12 words or 9 words or something like that. So you can sort of control that. You can control that there. But we can do that much better in our Spyral notebook. So I can set the max length. Let's say the maximum length is 5 words and the minimum length is 2 words. So I'm asking for the phrases tool and I'm controlling, excuse me, I'm controlling the phrases I want to see, and I want to see all phrases that have between 2 words and 5 words and are repeating. And I'm not sure this is a small enough text. It may not have a lot. Oh yeah, there we are. So we've got the phrase Catholic Calgary Catholic Immigration Society, CCIS. That's 5 words, and it repeats twice, probably because they might have put in more than one project, employer engagement and mentoring programs. So these phrases can be actually quite interesting because they tend to be uh, sort of boilerplate ideas. In-person crisis counseling, face barriers to accessing. And I'm actually going to sort this by the phrases that appear the most. So I've just sorted this. So we have one phrase, access to, that appears 4 times, digital literacy 2 times, 3 times. So you can see this is sort of a lot of these projects in Alberta are talking about that. And of course, this being Alberta, in Alberta is a phrase that shows up. Internationally trained medical graduates. That's interesting. That might be worth pursuing. A blended delivery project. Maybe I want to learn more about blended delivery in that. So looking at these phrases can be interesting. But the point I'm trying to make is that you can go into the tools overview here, the tools documentation. You can find model code. You can edit it and play around and see what you get. And you can actually control tools a lot easier here than you can, or you can control them precisely, more precisely than in Voyant. And by the way, you can always get rid of this. You can collapse it by using this little arrow up here, and you can get rid of it entirely by using the little X box. So I want to let you loose now and let you try that. So we've got this thing here. I want you to try it. So in your notebooks, see if you can get the context tool to work. Try experimenting with the query parameter. If you want to, you could try I just showed the phrases tool. You could try the links tool. And remember, it's always a good idea if you don't understand a parameter, just delete it. And by the way, when you want to understand a parameter, so if I were going to go to something like links, that's what all the rest of this documentation, it'll give you some sense of what these different parameters are and some of the choices that you can get. So take it away. So, how's everybody doing? Do you need another minute or shall I go on? Is anyone stymied? Is there model code that's not working for them? Is there a particular tool that they tried and they just can't get the code to generate what they want? By the way, you can all unmute on your own. Jessica set it up so you can just sort of you don't have to put it in the chat. You can just unmute and ask me something. So I think I'm going to close up I'm just going to go over how you can use this model code. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a notebook that I created. And you can see this will partly help answer Huang's question about how do you go about using this to analyze something. But first, I'm going to show you, I'm going to go back to my environment here, and I'm going to show you, we loaded the phrases tool, and I'm going to show you I'm going to show you the links tool. So the first thing I'm going to do, which is actually a good practice to get into, is I'm going to add a text field. It's always good to sort of write out what you think you're doing. I want to now see the words that co-locate with what was one of the interesting phrases? Literacy, with literacy. So let's try to get a sense of the semantic field of literacy. So it's always good to sort of write out so later on when you turn to this notebook, you have some sense of what it is you're trying to do. And in fact, sometimes I write a series of text fields in which I sort of lay out what I think I want to do, and then I start adding the code fields one by one and doing it, which goes back to I think I mentioned this idea of literate programming that goes back to a famous computer scientist, Knuth, who says that it's always better in some ways to figure out what it is you're trying to do and then write the code than to just start writing code willy-nilly and then having to change it as you realize what you're really trying to do. So I've written a little note to myself about what I want to do, and now I'm going to go get the links tools documentation. And so I'm grabbing that, pasting it in. I always have to remember I don't want Austin. I want my corpus. And let's see, I have no idea what centralized do, so I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to get rid of that. Stop list means that it's not going to show any words that are from a stop word list, which are basically function words, and the, someone like that. Those words show up a lot, and you don't want them in your links. So I'm going to oh, actually, I'm going to leave that. And here, query, I'm going to put literacy. Just as I was playing up with before, let's run this, see if it works. And there I am. I've got the word literacy and learning literacy, level, online, hybrid. I can, by the way, sorry about that. I can click, I can control click this, and I can ask it to get more collocates. This is one of the features you can play with. And actually, this is, if there's a collocate I don't like, let's get rid of the word particularly. I can remove that. So you can sort of trim this thing until you get something that looks like a semantic field that helps understand the context in which literacy is being talked about. So to just summarize, I I've started to add text fields in which I talk about what I'm seeing. I would often add another text field after this in which I might sort of interpret the results or make some notes to myself of, oh, hybrid. I wonder what hybrid literacy is. And for hybrid literacy, I could maybe go up to another tool. Well, I would probably load the reader or the context tool, and then I could actually look at the full text. But what I'm going to do now to finish this off, because I think we're 3 minutes before the end, is I'm going to look at a real notebook that I and Elian did about the Hansard that we searched. And I'm going to show you how I went about sort of interpreting it. First, I want to show you the spreadsheet that this came from. So here's the spreadsheet, and you'll see the spreadsheet has a series of columns. It's got the main topic, subtopic. That's not particularly interesting. This one is quite interesting, speaker party. So for each of the interventions or speakers, we know what their party is. We have the name of the person who spoke, the writing, and I forget what this one is. Old name. I guess sometimes they change their names or something like that. We have the language status. Sometimes these things are translated. We have the URL. We can actually go back and see the thing in the context of the debate. So I can always get back to the debate. And here I've got the date of the speech, and in particular, I've got the year. So year and party are going to be interesting. I'm going to look at this same collection of speeches, but I'm going to look at it from two different perspectives. And one of them I'm going to group it by party, and one of them I'm going to group it by year, which allows me two different ways to explore the same thing. So here's where I use the file upload, and I get the blob. So the blob, in some sense, I've got the data, but I haven't yet loaded it into a corpus of documents. So I'm going to create the first corpus, and notice I'm documenting what I'm doing. So here is the load corpus with a whole mess of parameters. You may remember when we loaded a spreadsheet in Voyant, in plain old vanilla Voyant, I'll return us there. We had all these options for tables. We had to say, do we want the documents from the entire table, each row, columns? Is the first row a set of headers, or is there no headers row? You'll looking at this spreadsheet, we actually have the first row is not content, it is headers. So we don't want to click that. Then we can specify where the content is, what we want to group by, authors and titles and stuff like that. And we're essentially going to do the same thing, but we're going to do it in code. So input format, I'm specifying that it's a Excel spreadsheet. Table, no headers row. If there were no headers, I would put the word true there. These, by the way, are all comments. They don't get processed, but they tell you, I happen to put it here so that I know what I'm doing. Table title. So the title for each document will appear in column 3, and that's the same column I'm going to use to group by. So we're going to group by parties, which is the third column. 1, 2, 3. We're going to group by parties, and then there will be one document for each party, and that document will be named by the word liberal, conservative, whatever. Then we have the documents. We're going to get them from rows, and the content is column 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's where the actual speeches are. So now when I run this, it produces a corpus ID. And I can then load the corpus and assign it the name. I don't have to give it my corpus, but it's just easier if I do it that way. I could just use the corpus ID from here on in, but that's just awkward. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to review. So I've grouped it by parties. So I'm going to review this. I've got 5 documents, And I can see that we have a lot more speeches from the liberals. They're in power. The conservatives are the opposition. They have like two-thirds of the number of speeches. NDP a certain amount. Bloc and the Greens don't have much to say on this with this conjunction of words. So now, so I'm sort of getting a sense of who's doing the talking. Now, I would have switched to Voyant. I would have played around. I would have looked at the list of high frequency words. And one word that came up really interesting was terror, terrorism, something like that. So I'm actually defining a variable here called query words, and I'm giving it the word terror. Then I'm opening the trends. I'm going to search for the word terror with the asterisk. So I get terror, terrors, terrorism, and so on like that. And I'm giving it a parameter. I want a bar chart. I don't want that sort of flowing chart. And I actually give it some style information about how wide and high I want it to be. And I'm just leaving this as a parameter I'm not using. So when I run that, I can see that the conservatives, even though they talk less, they use the word terror a lot. That's probably one of the angles that they're attacking the liberals about their immigration policy. I don't know this for sure. I can go into the full text and search for terror and see how they're going to use it. A second thing I've done is I've actually looked at, in Voyant, I've looked at the high frequency words that the liberals use and the high frequency words that the conservatives use. And then I've just made myself a little table. Here are the ones that are interesting, just so I can compare. The liberals are talking about investment, indigenous, care, families, learning, child, job, economy. The conservatives are talking about Canadian, well, they're both talking about Canadians. They're talking about the IRGC, data, group, Iran. They're very worried about people coming from Iran. Privacy, terror, banking. So that gives me some ideas. This gets back to your question, Huang. Gives me some ideas of things I might look for. I'm back to terror, and now I'm asking for a tool called collocates. This shows me the words that appear within 5 words of the terror words. And this time I've given it a doc index. So and these indexes, this is a computer science thing. But when you get a list of indexes, it always starts with 0. So the liberals are index 0, the conservatives are 1. So what I'm doing is I'm looking here for what words do the conservatives use in the neighborhood of the word terror. And you can see group, IRCG, list, listing, 1979. What's up with 1979? Did something happen there? Violence, victims, victimized, victim, vacations. What's up with vacations? Tax. These are all sorts of things that I would go back to Voyant and start poking around. Some of them will be false positives, but I can see words that are occurring, and it tells me how many times they occurred. The word group occurs 15 times in the conservative speeches within 5 words of the word terror. CG, which is, I think, the Iranian government. I think anyway, it's Irani. It's a term for an Irani. Is it the army or something like that? Keyword and context. Now I want to see how some of these words are actually being used. So I've chosen artificial and immigration. So I'm looking at how the word artificial and immigration, when they're close to each other, appear. And this is the keyword and context. I can actually see. Um, so I'm actually trying to see if the words immigration and artificial intelligence actually have something to do with each other, if there's any sort of connection between the two. And then I'm creating one of these links of the word, we just did that, or the word terror. Again, I'm looking only at how the conservatives use the word terror. That's what this doc index does. It says, don't do the entire corpus, just do that one document, which is index number 1, which happens to be the second one. And I know that's confusing, and you can blame computer scientists and mathematicians for that. Document terms. This is just giving me a list of all the terms. Because I have doc index 1, it's now all the terms that the conservatives used. sorted by count, so I can see the high frequency words. And it's actually sorted by a thing called TF-IDF, which shows me the words that the conservatives use far more often than any of the other parties. Now, and this is the last thing I'm going to bore you with, now I'm loading the same corpus, but now I'm going to group it by column 11, which is the year. So now I can look at the same thing. I'm looking at terror, and I can look at it and see when was it that they were all talking about terror. And it turns out 2023 is when the discussion of terror happens. So the same questions I can now ask, but from a different perspective. So you have this, you can look at it, you can play with it, you can fork it. Now that you can save, you can fork it and play with my things and try different things and interpret it yourself. We are over time, but I am happy to stay on and take some questions for people that have them, or you can think about it and we can take the questions next week. Are there any questions, or have you been overloaded and want to play with it and think about it? Please create a notebook with some real project that try it out. The best way to learn is to try it out. And next week, you can show us the notebook and ask all the questions about why your thing isn't working, and we can help problem solve it. Um, and don't be embarrassed by your notebooks. This is a learning. Well, if there's no questions, then I think I will say goodbye and see you all in a week. And don't worry, next week we will review the stuff we did. So you get another chance. There'll also be a video. If you go to the Google Drive, there is the Microsoft Word hands-on do-it-yourself that covers all this material. So these things are complex. You don't always get it the first time. Bang your head on it more than once, and it'll become useful. So, Jessica, I think we're over time, and I think we should call it a day. And thank you for setting this up, Jessica. Thank you to TMU.